Alright, so I'm replacing the soft top on the Mr2. You can kind of tell why. It's because this whole thing's falling apart. I just gotten the rear window tinted, but also there's a bunch of holes here that I've tried to cover up over time. I'll show you the main reason why I'm getting rid of this soft top. So look at the soft top. The door is open. I'm going to close the soft top and you'll see how this looks. You see that? So I'm driving down the highway on a nice hot day and the soft top's looking like this, so I got to get rid of that. So I'm getting rid of it. And that's because, you know, the issue with the soft tops is that over time the adhesive starts coming out, so you just have to replace the soft top. I have probably spent well over 5 hours messing with this over the course of multiple days, and I've just been adding these fabrics here and it doesn't help. It just doesn't. The solution to that is just to replace it all. So there's 8 screws, Phillips screw heads, and these little tabs on each side. And I'm just going to take that out. I'm not going to take out any other stuff unless it starts getting in the way. I've got this ratchet here to that bow, just so that I can put some pressure on it and it's not going to go back. When you take off all the screws on the top, this thing's going to come out. So, and you can kind of tell in what direction it goes because the washers leave their mark there. So as I'm taking this off, you can kind of see that there's glue somewhere there, and you can see that there's rust on this screw as well, so just be aware of that. So I've taken this tab off, and as you go to take this whole thing off, there is another plastic tab in there. See if I can focus on that. It's right there. So you'll have to do the same thing and take that tab out. So here's that piece that I took out. There's that plastic tab. I'm going to leave these on, just on this piece, so that they don't get lost. But as you're doing this, you know, I'm not a professional or anything. I'm relying on other information that has been posted. This vehicle, again, is like 20 years old. And it's kind of surprising to see that there's only like 2 to 3 videos online for this vehicle. Not a lot of these cars were sold. So if you're like a shop that's doing this for a customer, keep in mind that this vehicle is pretty much at this point going to be a classic. I think it's like 20, 25, 30 years for this car to be considered a classic. Just keep in mind that the vehicle is old, so you want to be careful when you're pulling these tabs out. You want to be careful with pretty much anything that you do in this vehicle because it is old. For example, like this screw that's going to need to be coming off for the metal frame. This screw here, you can tell it's rusted, so you obviously, for obvious reasons, you don't want to be using a drill for it. So to remove this trim piece, you have to remove these screws here. 1, 2, 3, and then the one on top that looks like it's rusted, 4. So all the screws are off now, and there it goes. Oof, it's a mess in there. You can see that. So to take it off, pull on the front and then just pass the rear. Under the soft top, there's 3 screws, and you can kind of start telling how much damage time has done. So I'm going to start removing the actual soft top by removing these screws here. There's 1, 2, 3, and I'm doing that on both sides. See, even with me being careful, I still managed to strip. See if I can get that to focus. I still managed to strip 2 bolts, or not bolts, screws. My advice would be, they're still usable, but my advice would be to use something like this, especially on the one that's rusted the most. See if I can get that to focus. And then kind of just try to get some rust and dirt out of these so that you don't accidentally end up stripping them. So in my case, this part of the soft top, you can kind of see that here, was interfering with getting the screws out, and it was making it more likely that I was stripping those. So make sure that this little part of the soft top isn't in the way of getting the screws out or preventing it from turning around, because you might end up stripping those screws. Alright, so after about 5 minutes of battling with this and not getting it to turn at all, I am going to have to unfortunately drill that out. Fortunately, that's the only option I can see here, because it's not turning at all. It's just so rusted, which means that the screw tip will be in there, and that will probably be unusable. Alright, so I had to use a grinder because the drill wasn't working. And let's see if I can get this to focus. Alright, you can kind of see there, the material that's attached to the soft top isn't as strong as the screws that are holding that material in place. So I just grinded that off, and I got some of the metal here. So I think what I'll do is, I obviously won't be able to use that hole anymore unless I drill more into it and then put a regular screw in there. I think what I'll do is I'll either put some silicone RV weather protective glue on there, or I will drill into that pre-existing hole a little bit further out and get like a regular screw from Home Depot. I'll see what's a better option there. So after those 3 screws are removed, you can just pull it from the corner, pull the soft top from the corner, and you can see the screws here, the ones that you took out. So it looks like they're just holes. It's just threaded holes that keep the soft top in place there around that corner. So I think what I'll do is, you can see that the thread is still there from the screw that I grinded down. I think what I'll do is I'll just try to drill right through it and then put like a flathead, new flathead screws in there, and that should fix it. So no need for any glue or anything like that. Just remove that screw on both sides. So I ripped this part out, but I think I'm just going to take it off altogether, because the new soft top doesn't have it, and it seems like the only thing that's keeping this in place is this metal tab here that's being protected by this strip. So I'm gonna see here. This kind of looks like it's welded on there. Alright, so yeah, that piece is welded there, so I probably should have left that there. I would definitely leave that there. You don't have to mess with that at all. The way that this moves is the near side, which is the side closest to you, is the side that props up with a screwdriver here. That part props up, and then you're able to bend it back. So you just have to do that. So when this comes out, it comes out towards you, not away from you. So and you can see how that's lifting up there. So after you get the string out, you start removing this using a plier tool, I guess. But this seems like it's a metal piece. Actually, it's not hard, but it does require some pressure. So it's definitely robust. So I'm going to try to get this whole thing out. You don't want to bend it fully, because you see here it's a metal piece. And what it actually does is, if it'll focus, the soft top goes on top of that metal piece. You can see that metal piece, and when you put the new soft top in, this bends towards the bow. So you don't really have to bend it all that much. If anything, you can just bend it a little bit and then just pick this up as you go, like that. There is some type of plastic / fabric that goes in between that groove. You see that? So that's why I'm saying you don't want to mess up that groove there, because you're going to be needing it. So here's the flap all taken off, and you can see that metal piece that you're bending. You can kind of see over here that I've messed up the groove there, so I'm going to try to, when I put the new soft top on, I'll try to fix that. But this flap here, the one that goes in between that groove, seems to go through these other two bows here. You can tell the difference between these bows if you're ever lost. You have these two regular bows. I don't know the numbers. I know there's some forum post about the terminology for this, but I'm not going to bother with learning that. If you're interested, I'm pretty sure you can find it. So that's kind of how I'm going to pull them apart. And this flap here seems to go under or over these two bows here. And this string here, don't know what it's for, but I do remember that there was a spring just like that one over there. A little spring right there, looks a little yellow. That was on this side. I had no use for that. I didn't notice a difference with it, without it. So if you pull it, you can kind of see how that works. I took it off because I was having issues with the soft top, how it was coming down, and it helped for me to remove one of those springs. I don't think it makes much of a difference whether you have it or not. If you want to find out, you can always take it off and then put it back in. I'm going to basically just leave this how it is on the new soft top. So I'm going to break this zip tie that I have here and then just kind of leave it like that. If you replace the springs, I would say, because obviously these springs are old and they lose tension over time, and after every use, what you want to do is you want to cover them with tape or something that's going to protect the soft top from being damaged by that spring, because as you can tell from that spring, there is something protecting it. There's a protective cover over it. And that's it. This is pretty self-explanatory, but it's just a regular spring with the hook, so you can just take it off by unlooping that. To remove the soft top from this bow, this piece is just glued on. You can kind of see there. Just work around all of it. Don't know what kind of glue this is, but looks like there's little gaps here and there. So just remove that part. Alright, so once you got that section removed from all that glue, you end up with this section to remove the soft top. But this little fabric piece here is a little bit difficult to take off because it gets stuck on this bolt here. And there's a spring inside here. So what you want to do is, you can either, if you're not going to use the soft top, you can just cut this out and then get that spring out, because you are going to need. So I ended up not having a need to rip it. I was able to get it out. It's still kind of hard to get it out because the spring gets in the way, and you can feel that spring. You can see it there. So if I pull it just a little bit, you can see there's just a little hole there, and you're able to take it out. I would recommend some of these needle nose pliers so that you can go inside here and then try to take it out from this bolt right here. So this entire fabric piece was inside here, and once you remove it, this is what it'll look like. So just remove that spring, reuse it, or go out to your local hardware store and buy yourself new springs that are the same dimension and the same tension, and you should be good. I would definitely do that if I had the time, but I don't, and this spring looks pretty well protected, so I'm just going to leave it there. Well, I'll use it on the new soft top, but I'll just reuse it. Alright, so at this point you need to be able to access the sides, and in order to do that you need to prop up the rear window. I'm using some wood because everything kind of starts getting in the way. This is now clamped back on, the seats are moved forward, and they're leaning towards the front. So I'm pretty slim and I can fit back here without a problem. This is a driver's side, and you need to unwrap this, and in order to do that there is Velcro right behind here. So if you follow the top, you can just pull that out. I'm trying to do this with one hand here, so it's just so you can kind of see here where that Velcro is. It's a little strap here. That Velcro's right behind here, and this wraps around over it. So you might need 2 hands and a little bit of strength to get that off, but it'll come off. There's also more Velcro down here, and that's easy to take off. You can take it off at the same time. At this point, you start seeing what's inside of this and what this little flap covers. It covers another string here that you can take off, but I'm going to leave it on right now because I'm not too sure that's necessary at this point. So I'm not able to show you, but the only reason I know is because I just felt it. But this little flap here goes actually kind of deep down there, and there's Velcro down there, and that's what I felt. I just put my hand down here, and then you can kind of hear it, and I took that out. So this, you kind of see how far. I'll try to get my phone in there, but it goes all the way in there. And I think that should be it for taking this flap out. So I'll just kind of put this back how it was. Because at this point is, actually this entire installation is monkey see, monkey do. You kind of just see how the previous monkey did it and see if you can do it how the previous monkey did it. So I'm going to just unwrap this out of here towards the outside, but just pay attention to how this is wrapped around the metal frame there. Just took this out and you can kind of see how dirty this is. I don't even know where this goes to or where it's supposed to be connected, but hopefully I find out soon enough. But here's what it looks like when you just unravel that flap. There is a strap that goes in between this bow and this bow. Kind of to give you a reference, here's the bow where you have that metal frame that bends. Here's that bow, and there's another bow right here. It goes in between these bows that are close to each other, and I'll show you here. I'll just put the flap a little bit more back, but it goes in between them. Pull this a little bit more. It goes inside, from the outside to the inside of this square bracket. And then this square bracket, let's see if I can, there you go. This little strap that is attached to the soft top, I believe. Yeah, it's attached to, actually, never mind. It's not attached to the soft top. It's attached to the bow. Goes around the bow and then into this little slot here of the bracket. So this part of the soft top goes inside the bracket. This goes inside of this little section here after it wraps around the bow. Bracket here so you can kind of get a better view. See how it goes inside of this bracket after it wraps around to this bow, and it seems to be held. I think this strap here, or actually it doesn't wrap around, this is attached to the bow here, so it looks like there's 2 independent ones. So I'm going to cut this zip tie, take this out. The zip tie is cut, and I'm just going to take that out, and you can see where that strap goes to. It goes to this here that has rivets, and then this part of the soft top goes inside of the bracket. You can just pull that out. This is my other side, and same thing. I don't think these were ever connected at all to anything because there was no pressure going against me when I pull this out coming from this side. I'll have to look and see where those came from, but for now I don't know where they're at or what they were attached to. So at this point you can start removing the sides here. I saw Antimatter's garage video where he left this alone and then started messing with the back. I don't know why. Maybe that's how the instructions were, but I find it better to start off with the sides. That way, instead of the mirror and the soft top getting in the way of when you're trying to get back to the screws don't get in the way. That way, if I take these two sides off first, I can just pull the whole thing back and then have all this area where I can start working on. So I'm going to do that. There's a little wire here that attaches, looks like it's crimped on to a bracket here, and that bracket comes off by what I assume is a 10mm bolt, and it's on the other side too as well, obviously. So I'm going to take that bolt off and I'll get you a better view. In order to get to the bolt without having to remove some of the rear storage interior plastics, you kind of have to have some sort of weird combination of ratchet extensions and a swivel and your 10mm socket here. I'll kind of show you what I mean. So I've seen some videos where they take this piece off, but you don't really need to do that because the bolt is down there, and I'll try to get this with I'll try to set this up and then record it because it's kind of hard to do this with one hand. So I ended up getting a longer extension, but you can kind of see what I'm doing here. You can see the bolt there, and it's really that swivel and the extension that kind of helps out. So I just took the 10mm out now, but I'll just put it back in and twist it off without having to remove it. Obviously, if you don't want to battle with having to get to that bolt, definitely take the plastic off. I'm not going to because I have a plethora of tools laying around. So I'm going to use this magnet here, and I'm just going to take it off with my hand because it's already loose enough for me to be able to turn it. You can kind of see it there. So even if it falls, I'll be able to get it with this magnet. My bolt, actually nut I should say, ended up falling. You can see it's right there, so I'm just going to get that with my magnet. So obviously while you're here, you should definitely clean your gutters, because I know water's been getting through that, but I would consider that clogged. So I'm definitely going to take all that shit out. So in case you're not too sure where that nut and bolt is, that's where it's at. And that's what we're trying to reach with this set of extensions and swivel. So the same thing happened on the other end. The bolt went down, but it's fine because I got my handy magnet. So kind of just want to show you how this wire and bracket are on there. Push it out. There it is. And that the bolt is in there. If you haven't already, go ahead and remove the connection to the heat lines, or whatever they're called, to the mirror. I'm going to need 2 hands for that, so it's pretty self-explanatory. There's a little tab here that you pull from the connection here. You just pull that down and take it out, then just take it out of this little loop here. There is 1, 2, and behind this flap, 3 and 4. So while I was doing this, I found out that there's another bolt and nut over here, so I probably won't be able to reach that with the drill, so I'm just going to ratchet that out. Nuts slash bolts that are holding this section here together, and that in turn is holding the remaining of the soft top. So I'm going to take that off and see where that gets me. Alright, so it was taking me some time to take these nuts off, and I ended up using a drill just to speed things up a little bit because it was taking me a bit with the ratchet. But you could, if you don't have a drill, you can definitely access them just with the ratchet. And then I got to the last bolt nut here. You can see it, it's right there. And then I figured that this is getting in the way, so I'm gonna start taking this off. Yeah, so it looks like you can just pull these out. There you go. And then it should make it easier for you to access. Just take note of that hole there, but access that other bolt with either a drill or a ratchet. Once those bolts are out, or nuts are out, you should be able to take this metal frame outwards towards you and then pull on the soft top to release this section of the soft top. So that's what I'm going to do. To do that from the outside, just because I kind of got a whole mess going on here. This is also a tight fit, and the swivel comes in handy. But after that, it's really easy. This bolt is actually not as tight as all the other ones. Alright, so I took that bolt out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this down and out of the way so that I can get the soft top out of the way. Now with this off, you can kind of see how the soft top is being grabbed on by those bolts that have the nuts there. So I'm just going to go ahead and take those out, take the soft top out of the way from those 5 bolts. You can kind of start seeing the idea behind this instead of having to take this off. So the idea is, I've already cleaned this, the drains here. I just grabbed some wipes and made sure that it was clean and out of the way. But basically, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I haven't gotten to that side just yet, but I'm going to do the same thing. And instead of having to deal with the weight of the window, the whole soft top is just going to be resting on the rear hood of the car, instead of having to deal with the weight. What I was talking about, where the window and the other soft part, the top of the soft part, front, is just hanging on the rear. Now to get the other pieces off, all I have to do is pull this plastic back and then access the bolts that are down there. I don't know why this looks like somebody just spray painted this, and this kind of just looks like oversprayed. I did buy this vehicle used, so I don't know what happened there. I am going to clean all this up a little bit more. Probably grab a vacuum or something since I'm already here, and because it's looking like there's a whole mess. But first I'm gonna remove the entire soft top first. So next up is, like I just said, just pull this portion back. There are more screws. Pay attention to how everything is in the way and what order things go. To give you a better view of the bolts that I'm talking about, it looks like this layer here that's not connected to the soft top goes over. I'm gonna have to look at other videos because I could have sworn they went in between the nut and the bolts here, but if you continue to pull that back, you'll see there's another. So I've got all the bolts, screws, and nuts laid out in the order that I took them out. So in the rear, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 nuts that you have to take off. So that's pretty much the last step as far as taking off the soft top on the car. Now that all the bolts are taken out, really the only thing that remains is to take the bottom portion out of the soft top out, and then the whole thing should come out. Piece that was in between the rain rail and the plastic. This is the rain rail and the plastic piece of the soft top that still needs to come out. Alright, so I just pulled it out, and that's the last of the soft top. So my advice is don't clean anything until you have the soft top completely removed, because otherwise you're still going to end up with all the trash that's inside here. So I'm going to remove this, put this on the concrete, and see about the rivets. So if you pull this up and out, it'll come off. So you can just have this resting like so. That way you can start cleaning all this stuff. So a while ago I bought this touch-up paint that I use on the vehicle to cover up some of the spots where the paint was either rusting or there were some rock chips, like right here. I'm going to use this to write up where the rivets are on the soft top. Doesn't matter to me how it looks because nobody's ever going to see this. And so I just drilled out a rivet here, and it looks like, at least on mine, there's a washer in the back, and that rivet goes through the washer and it grabs onto the washer so that it can get in there. But at least I know that that's where I drilled out one of the rivets. Before you start drilling out all the rivets, you want to make sure that you note that there's 2 holes on the old soft top that aren't riveted in. So note that for when you're installing it on the new soft top, and kind of just note all the positions of all the holes. That way you're not drilling or making holes where you're not supposed to be. If your drill bit is smaller than the rivet, you might end up with a sharp rivets. I would make sure that you're throwing those away, because I think these will probably puncture a tire if you leave them laying around. Alright, so I've gone to the store like 3 times already, trying to get the perfect combination of rivets with washers, because they're all different sizes. And I finally settled on using 1/8 in diameter and 5/8 in length. And in combination with number 6 washers and number 8 washers. So number 8, number 6 washers, the rivet, and another number 8 washer. You can kind of see it doesn't even cover the whole thing. I think I'm just going to stick with using number 6 washers because it's not coming out so good. It's not flat on this end, but I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, to be honest. If your rivets are sticking out from that plastic piece that goes in the rear, the issue that you run into is that those rivets are going to be hitting this metal piece. And you can ignore them, or you can drill into this and hope that it works, which is what I've seen that people are doing. So I have this handy tool. I don't really know what it's called, but I'll try to look it up for you and put it in the video. This is what I'm going to be using to cut the excess. The extra part of the rivets that's sticking out and that is touching the metal piece for the rear. It'll kind of try to turn on the light here, but if you can see, so you can kind of see that I've cut all these rivets. They're still obviously in place. They're still doing their job. And if you're doing what I'm doing, just make sure that you're careful that you're grabbing all the metal pieces that are coming off those rivets. You don't want those clogging up your drains. Alright, so they're coming out a lot better. This side's still a little bit fat, but I'm putting these in as placeholders so that they come out straight. Otherwise, it could be a little bit crooked. Alright, so I got all the rivets out and put new ones in. I did take out like 2 rivets, the ones that I had started with, because I didn't like how they had come out. Now they're all perfect. Alright, so I'm starting to find out that there's a stud here, a bolt stud, or it's just a stud, but there's no hole here. And it's the same case. This is actually right where this line is, and it's on the other side too. So I had to drill a hole there, and I made a small hole, obviously because water's going to be around here, instead of making a big hole. But I got that fixed on this side. But apparently the same thing is the case on the other side. Alright, so the new soft top is resting on the rear hood, and we're gonna put that piece in between this rain liner. So it's gonna go in here, and I've moved this to the top so it's just resting there. After the liner goes in, we put in this metal piece. So let's see how that goes. How I took it off is not working out for how I'm going to put it back, and it would be easier to have taken this off, but I am determined, and I know I will be able to get this in there from the inside. I just need to prop this up, the window. But so far, it's looking like it's going to take me probably another 3 hours, which by then it'll probably be around 11 p.m. So I'd say this job's taking me about 12 hours. Alright, so it's actually kind of easy to put it back in. All I did was go inside, I sat in the middle, and then propped this up using my head, and then using both of my hands to put that plastic piece back on. Alright, so I still haven't put the bolts in the back, but what I've done is I've just wrapped it around the corner and have this bracket open, and I did the same thing on the other side here, and the bracket is open just so that I can have some room back there. And I think I'll do the same wood trick so I can have some space there. So the rear bracket is ready to go on, and it's going to be going on like so. where the sharp edge is facing downward and the round edge is facing upwards. Once you have the rear bracket in place, you can remove the soft top from the top. That way it's easier to start working on the brackets that are holding the sides. Alright, so I'm putting the brackets back on now after screwing all those rear nuts in. One thing to note is, so you don't fully tighten up that nut that's the very last one. You just put the nut in there in a way where it's not going to fall off, but in a way where it's not tight, and then you start working your way up here, and eventually you end up, I'm not too sure if I'm going to be able to get this to focus, eventually you end up where that last nut is, or sorry, that one's a bolt, and now all you have left to do is screw them in. Also, another thing to note is that the bolt that goes in on this other side here goes behind. Let's see if I can get it. So this part of the bracket here goes behind what looks to be the washer that's back there. I'll try to see if I can get that. So here's the bracket, and there is a washer somewhere here that's attached to the vehicle. So this goes behind that. It doesn't go over, it goes behind that, and then you put the bolt through. If you drop the frame, you can have better access to that bolt that's right here, and that way you can kind of see how you can get that in easier. After you've made sure that all the nuts have been bolted down, make sure that you don't forget to squeeze these little plastic tabs onto the studs, and then you can go ahead and just install the heat for the window. The new top doesn't come with this bracket little piece. It's a little bit delicate, but on the old top it's in here, so just make sure you're taking that off. Depending on your soft top, this bracket might not have come attached to the soft top. If it's not, well, it's a good thing you got rivets, so that way you can rivet it on there. Mine already came with that riveted on there. So the next part is this bracket here. I don't know what purpose this serves, and I'm hoping to find out later, but so far on mine it goes like so, and you can tell because the smaller hole only goes into the smaller hole in the bracket, this bracket here. So it points downwards, but I've seen where, depending on how this is situated, it might point towards the cap. But in the end, it should end up pointing inward into the cab to the rear. I'm going to have to drill into this because the holes is too small and it's not going all the way in. I'm using a sink clamp because I value my fingers. Alright, so that's how it looks. It's pointing down, this is riveted, and it's pointing towards you right now. But when it turns over, it'll point towards the inside of the cab, like so. I had to look at one of my videos here because this is wrong. This doesn't go inside of this section, it goes in between these the bow that goes into the frame here, and this bow, it goes in here, not in here. Side tarp here, soft top, goes in through the middle, and what you're trying to do with this section here is you're trying to go over this and obviously get this piece here in there as well, while at the same time using this part to go over this. That way this isn't rubbing on anything that it shouldn't be. When getting this bracket in, it'll help a lot if you kind of semi-open the top frame. Remember how I said that it's best to have a bunch of tools? Well, I dropped the nut that goes into that bracket, and it's not metallic, so now I need this. make sure that the little ball that's usually here, you can't see it now, it's usually, right now it's covered, but make sure that you're not actually seeing the little ball from the cable there. It's starting to get dark in here because the cover's coming all together, but once you got it in here, you just got, I'm going to use these small zip ties. The color of the zip tie doesn't matter, you're not going to see this once this is installed, but an important thing here is that you want to make sure that the soft top is going around this frame part. I don't know what these straps are for. This whole thing didn't come with instructions, so I think I'm just going to leave them hanging. So as far as straps goes, you have your first one, which has a hole. Then you have this, which has a little button type of button. It's for the ears. Some people use that, some people don't. And then you have another hole. So you have hole, button, hole. The first strap goes over this bow, and then it connects here. I've seen some photos, and some people don't have a bolt there. I don't even know what this is. Mine, for whatever reason, does have it. But really what you're just doing is you're grabbing the spring, and then you're covering that spring with this. You can use some pliers to help you fit that spring through this little conduit fabric, but it eventually just ends up being connected to the first strap that has the hole. I had to rip this fabric conduit for the spring because the spring ended up getting caught. So I ended up using a zip tie here for the third strap with the hole in it, because I don't have the other zip tie or the other spring that looks like that. Now I'm just putting this on. This goes, and I had to shorten that spring and cut it because I messed it all up. Hopefully it lasts a bit. If it doesn't, I could always go to the hardware store and replace it. It's easy access anyways. Goes this side, this under soft top, I guess we can call it that, goes over these two bows, and then it goes under the third bow, and then goes on top. I put some friction tape on this clamp so that it doesn't scrape the bow. One thing that I'm noticing is the washer that was on the original top is getting in the way of this aftermarket spring here that came with the new top. I was able to squeeze the washer in by just tightening it up a bit. Once that's done, you can just clamp these on both sides. Now it's time to put the corners on. Definitely helps to have the soft top a little bit lowered when you're putting those corners on. So this is the old top. The old top has these tabs. They're like plastic tabs that screw into, it's got 3 of these, that screw into the frame of the soft top. The new one doesn't have it. I gave up and trying to fix this corner because it wasn't working out. I'm hoping some of the whatever goes on here covers that, but you can see that there's no tabs here, so I'm gonna have to drill there and probably use some glue and hope that it doesn't leak. Alright, so I'm almost done with this. Because it didn't come with the tabs, I'm not gonna put them in there. I'm obviously going to have to put this on there, and this does cover that pretty sharp corner. I'll just make little holes as small as I can make them using this pick, and then move on forward. I am getting a little wrinkle here. This is coming out. I don't know what to do about that one, but honestly it doesn't even look that bad. It looks a lot better already than how my other one looked. So to kind of make it a little bit easier, what I first did was I screwed this. I made the holes, screwed the screws to the fabric, and then screwed the bracket to the fabric using the screws. And then finally I'm gonna put it to the frame just to kind of make it a little bit easier. There it is. Alright, so did the same thing here, just screwed the bracket to the fabric. Now all I gotta worry about is screwing this into the plastic white piece there. Not sure if it'll focus. So depending how difficult it is for you, you could install that little, here I'll try the little side screw that's under this. It's behind here, the screw that comes along this this bracket. You could install that first and then install the centerpiece if you find that it's easier to do that. For me, for whatever reason, it wasn't, and I had to install this part first and then do the sides. So whatever is easier for you. Alright, so it's been about a week since I installed the soft top. This is still popping out. It doesn't bug me, I'm just going to leave it there. You can kind of see that ball I was talking about now that it's exposed. I'm probably going to leave that there too. I've dropped the top multiple times now. There's no issue there. I have noticed that in comparison to my previous soft top, this is a little bit more difficult to close. My other one was really easy to close. That's because the mirror was all messed up and there wasn't all that tension. Another thing that I noticed is that the soft top is a lot easier to come down. It basically, I wouldn't say it comes down by itself, but once I open the top, I can be sitting down and closing it without having to get out of the vehicle, which is what I was doing in the previous top. My old top is I was getting out of the vehicle and basically having to assist the mirror to go into that mirror section down there below and then closing it. With this new top, I don't have to. So I'll kind of just show you what I mean. I just unlatched the top and this is just me putting it down. You see how flawless that is now? I do have the ears because I don't have the straps for it, and to be honest with you, I don't really care for the ears. It's really easy for me to just put it down without having to do much stress, and to put it back up. To put it back up, it's a little bit, like I said, it's more difficult because it's a new tarp, which is how it's supposed to be, because there's supposed to be tension to pull this mirror up, which is not what was happening with my old top, which is why it was basically a frog. And I told my wife, I was like, it looks like I'm driving a frog, because I turned on the AC and the whole mirror was popping out. But it's no longer doing that. Now it looks flawless. One thing that I did notice is that it looks like the soft top here is, that little line there is a little bit more exposed, and it looks the same on the other side. I'm probably just going to leave that. I did see, I think it was Antimatter's Garage video on replacing the soft top, that he actually added another screw to this, a very short screw, not a long one, so that it wouldn't penetrate this plastic that's under the soft top. I'm not going to do that. It's sealed just fine. I haven't had any issues with it. Just to show you the other side, it's the same thing. You could clamp that down and add another screw. I'm not going to do that. I don't have any leaks, so that's not a problem. Something that I did notice is that when I put this on, it's not quite matching up how it does on the driver's side. That doesn't bug me either. I'm just going to leave that, to be honest with you. I've spent way too much time on this. So I guess if you're putting this part on, make sure that it's lining up how it's supposed to. If it's not, you might have to re-puncture the soft top where those screws for this part goes.